She never screamed. She never begged. When Vanessa Sinclair's foot connected with her shoulder and the cliff edge crumbled beneath her sneakers, Emily Carter did the one thing nobody expected. She smiled. Because in her pocket was a photograph that would end the engagement of the year, expose a decade of lies, and turn a billionaire's whole world upside down. She had 30 seconds before the ground disappeared. She had waited 3 years for this exact moment. And she was not falling. She was finally free. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Before we start, drop a comment and let us know, what country are you watching from tonight? Grab something warm to drink, get comfortable, because today's story is one you will not forget. This is an emotional journey about betrayal, hidden identity, and a love nobody saw coming. Let's begin. The rain had not stopped in 3 days over the cliffs of Marin County, and Emily Carter liked it that way. Rain meant fewer guests wandering the gardens of the Cole estate, fewer chances for Vanessa Sinclair to find a reason to humiliate her in front of company. Faster, Vanessa snapped, not even looking up from her phone as Emily carried the 4th box of centerpiece flowers up the stone path toward the cliffside pavilion. The wedding planner arrives in 20 minutes, and this entire garden looks like a swamp. Yes, Miss Sinclair. Emily kept her head down. She had learned, over 18 months of working in this house, that eye contact only made things worse. What none of the staff knew, what none of them could possibly guess, was that Emily Carter had a doctorate in structural engineering sitting unused in a drawer in her small apartment in Sausalito, and a reason for being here that had nothing to do with a paycheck. Her father, Daniel Carter, had built half of what Cole Industries stood on. 22 years ago, when Nathaniel Cole's father was drowning in debt after a failed merger, it was Daniel Carter who quietly signed over his patents, his savings, and his silence to keep the company alive, in exchange for a promise. A 10% silent stake, held in trust, never to be touched until his daughter turned 30 or until the company changed hands, whichever came first. Then came the car accident. Emily was 10. Her mother died instantly. Her father held on for 6 more days before he was gone too. And somewhere in the chaos of grief, hospital bills, and a foster system that shuffled her through 4 homes in 6 years, the paperwork for that stake vanished, buried. Everyone assumed, along with the man who signed it. Everyone except Vanessa Sinclair's family. Emily. A new voice, warm and startled, cut through the rain. She looked up and found Nathaniel Cole standing at the top of the path, black umbrella tilted against the wind, staring at her the way he sometimes did. Like he was trying to remember a song he'd heard once as a child and couldn't place. Mr. Cole. She straightened, water dripping from her braid. I was just bringing these up for the rehearsal setup. Let me help. He was already reaching for the heaviest box before she could protest. You don't have to. I know. He smiled, and for a moment the tired billionaire, the man whose face had been on the cover of 3 business magazines that year for turning around his father's failing empire, looked almost like a boy again. I want to. It happened every time. A kindness she hadn't asked for. A question about her day that felt genuine instead of performative. 3 weeks ago, he had found her reading during her lunch break and asked what book it was, then actually remembered the title a week later and asked how it ended. She told herself it meant nothing. He was engaged. In 11 days, he would marry Vanessa Sinclair in this very garden, and Emily would go back to being invisible, the way she had trained herself to be since she was 10 years old, and learned that the world moved on without you, if you let it see you bleed. But there was a question underneath all of it that Emily had come here to answer, and every day that passed without answering it cost her something. Does Nathaniel Cole know what his fiancée's family did to mine? Quick question for you before we continue. Have you ever worked for someone who had no idea who you really were? Drop a comment and tell us. Inside the main house, in a study with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the same cliffs, Vanessa Sinclair's father was on a call that Emily was never meant to overhear. She had come in to deliver dry cleaning, the door slightly ajar, and Richard Sinclair's voice, low, clipped, businesslike, froze her in the hallway. The trust document is still sealed under the Carter name, he was saying. As long as nobody files a claim before the merger closes, it defaults to the estate. Once Vanessa is Mrs. Cole, It doesn't matter whose name was on the original paperwork. It becomes community property. 10% of coal industries clean, no questions. Emily's hands went numb around the hangers. And the daughter? A pause. No, I'm not worried about her. Foster kid, no lawyer, no money. Even if she shows up with the birth certificate, we bury her in litigation for a decade. She'll fold. Emily did not remember walking away from that door. She remembered only standing in the laundry room afterward, staring at her own shaking hands, understanding for the first time exactly how much danger she was in, and exactly how much was actually at stake. Not just an inheritance. Her father's name. Her father's memory. The only proof that Daniel Carter had ever mattered to this family at all. She had 6 days left before the wedding to decide what to do with what she knew, and whether telling the truth would save her, or simply give the Sinclairs a reason to make sure she disappeared for good. Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her studio apartment with a shoebox open in front of her, the only thing she had left from her father. A faded photograph of him shaking hands with a much younger Robert Cole, Nathaniel's father, outside the original coal industries warehouse. A single sheet of yellowed trust paperwork, torn at one corner, with a state seal she could no longer read clearly. And a small brass key that fit nothing she had ever found. She had spent 3 years working her way into this house. Not by accident. She had researched, applied, interviewed twice, and taken a 50% pay cut from her old engineering firm to do it. She told herself she only wanted to understand, to watch, to find proof before she did anything reckless. But watching Nathaniel Cole every day had complicated things she never planned for. He was not what the magazines made him out to be. Behind closed doors, he ate dinner standing at the kitchen island, so the house staff wouldn't have to serve him formally. He remembered the names of every gardener's children. He had, on more than one occasion, quietly paid a staff member's medical bill and told no one. And more than once, Emily had caught him looking at her the way you look at something familiar you can't quite place, like déjà vu wearing a person's face. She didn't understand why until the night of the engagement dinner rehearsal, 6 days before the wedding, when Nathaniel found her alone in the garden folding linens and said the words that nearly stopped her heart. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "A girl I knew when I was 12. My father used to bring her to the office sometimes." She had a laugh you could hear across a room. He shook his head, almost embarrassed. "It's strange. I haven't thought about her in 20 years. Emily's throat closed. What happened to her? Her father worked with mine. Business partner, I think, though I was too young to understand the details. Then one day they just stopped coming. My dad never talked about it. I always assumed something happened to the partnership." He looked at her, and something in his expression sharpened, curious. "You know, I never asked your last name." "Carter," she said, before she could stop herself. "Emily Carter." Something moved behind his eyes. Not full recognition, not yet, but the first crack in a door that had been sealed for 20 years. "Carter," he repeated slowly. "That's..." He stopped himself, shook his head like he was chasing a thought that wouldn't hold still. "It's probably nothing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be strange." "You're not being strange." Emily's voice came out softer than she meant it to. "It's a common name." But it wasn't nothing, and both of them seemed to sense it, standing there in the rehearsal lights with the ocean crashing somewhere below them in the dark. If you were Emily right now, would you tell him everything, or wait for proof? Let us know in the comments. Vanessa found them like that, standing close, talking quietly, the space between them charged with something neither had named. "Am I interrupting?" Her voice was ice-wrapped in silk. "Not at all." Nathaniel stepped back immediately, and Emily hated how relieved she felt when he did. Hated that she cared. "Emily was just telling me the linens need another hour to dry before the tables are set." Vanessa's eyes moved over Emily slowly, cataloging, the way she always did, assessing whether this particular member of the help required correction. "Emily. Is it?" she said, as though she had not walked past this woman 1,000 times in 18 months. "I don't pay you to chat with my fiancée." "You don't pay her at all, actually," Nathaniel said mildly. "My accounting department does. But your point's taken. We should head in." It was a small thing, a joke almost, but Emily saw the flicker of fury cross Vanessa's face before she smoothed it into a practiced smile. And later that night, walking back to her car in the staff lot, Emily felt the weight of being watched. She turned. No one was there. But a black sedan she didn't recognize sat idling at the end of the drive, engine running, headlights off. She told herself it was nothing. She was wrong. 2 days before the wedding, Emily made a decision that would either save her or destroy her. She went looking for the missing piece of her father's story. The Cole family archives were housed in a converted wine cellar beneath the East Wing. Decades of contracts, photographs, and correspondence that nobody had touched in years. Emily had cleaned that room exactly once, months ago, and she remembered a cabinet of unlabeled boxes near the back. She waited until the house staff cleared out for the pre-wedding dinner, told the head housekeeper she had a migraine, and slipped downstairs with a flashlight and her father's brass key. It took 40 minutes of searching before she found the box marked only with a date, the same year her parents died. Inside was a manila folder, and inside that, copies, carbon copies, faded but legible, of a trust agreement between Daniel Carter and Robert Cole. 10% held in escrow, transferring automatically to Daniel Carter's surviving heir upon her 30th birthday or upon any change of controlling ownership in Cole Industries. Both men's signatures, a notary seal, and a handwritten note clipped to the front, in Robert Cole's handwriting, dated just 3 weeks before he died. If anything happens to me before Emily comes of age, make sure she knows her father was the reason this company survived. Make sure she knows she was never forgotten. Emily sat on the cold cellar floor and cried for the first time in years, not from grief, but from something closer to relief. Proof. Real, undeniable proof, sitting in her hands. The brass key, it turned out, fit a small lockbox bolted to the underside of the same shelf. Robert Cole had hidden a second, sealed copy specifically so it couldn't be destroyed, along with a short letter addressed, chillingly, to whoever found it. If you're reading this, someone tried to make sure you never would. She didn't hear the cellar door open behind her. Well, Vanessa said softly, stepping down into the light, Richard Sinclair a shadow behind her on the stairs. There she is. Emily scrambled to her feet, folder clutched to her chest. This isn't what it looks like. No, Vanessa agreed, walking closer, heels clicking against stone. It's exactly what it looks like. You're the Carter girl. Her mouth curled, not quite a smile. My father said you'd probably show up eventually. I didn't think you'd be stupid enough to do it 2 days before my wedding. Your wedding, Emily said, voice shaking but steady, to a man who has no idea his fiancée's family stole his father's promise to mine. Give me the folder, Emily. Vanessa's hand extended, palm up, patient the way you'd be patient with a child. And I'll make sure you disappear quietly. New city, new name, enough money to start over. My father is generous when people cooperate. And if I don't cooperate? Richard Sinclair spoke for the first time from the shadows of the stairwell, his voice flat and final. Then we make sure nobody ever finds you to ask. This is the moment everything changes. Stay with us. You will not believe what happens next. Emily ran, not toward the house, toward the only place she knew Vanessa wouldn't dare cause a scene. The cliffside pavilion, still strung with the wedding's white lights, close enough to the main terrace that a scream might actually be heard. She was wrong about that too. The rehearsal dinner had already moved indoors. The garden was empty, the ocean roaring below the cliffs in the dark, and Vanessa caught up to her at the very edge of the stone path where the earth gave way to a 100-foot drop. You should have taken the money, Vanessa said, breathing hard, mascara streaked from the wind. You should have just disappeared like you were supposed to 18 years ago. My father didn't disappear. He died believing your family would honor his sacrifice. My family built an empire out of your father's stupidity, Vanessa spat. And I am not losing everything 2 days before I become Mrs. Cole because some maid found a folder. She lunged, not a slap, not a shove, but a hard, deliberate kick to Emily's shoulder that sent her stumbling backward, feet slipping on wet stone, the folder flying from her arms as the cliff edge crumbled beneath her heel. For one suspended second, Emily Carter looked at the woman who had just tried to kill her and felt something strange settle over her, calm where there should have been terror. She had already sent copies of everything to her lawyer that afternoon. Whatever happened to her now, the truth would not die with her. Emily. The voice tore across the garden a half-second before a hand closed around her wrist. Nathaniel, who had come looking for her when she never showed to the dinner, who had seen just enough of the struggle from the terrace to run faster than he had ever run in his life. He hauled her back from the edge with a strength that left them both crumpled on the wet stone, her heart slamming against her ribs, loose earth still crumbling somewhere below into the dark. "What?" Nathaniel said, staring at Vanessa with an expression Emily had never seen on his face before. "Did you just do?" "She fell," Vanessa said quickly, smoothing her dress, her composure snapping back into place like a mask. "She was upset. She was running. The ground is wet. Nathaniel, you know how dangerous that path is." "I saw you." His voice was very quiet, which somehow made it worse than shouting. "I saw your foot, Vanessa." Emily, still shaking, reached for the folder that had landed near the path's edge, soaked through but intact. She held it out to him with both hands, the way you'd offer someone the truth you've been carrying alone for far too long. "My name is Emily Carter," she said. "My father was Daniel Carter. He worked with your father 22 years ago, and he saved this company when it was about to collapse. In exchange, your father promised him 10% held in trust for me. Your father wrote a letter, hidden with a second copy, in case anyone ever tried to bury it." Her voice cracked. "Someone did try. Her family." Nathaniel took the folder with hands that weren't quite steady. He read his father's handwriting in the fading porch light, and Emily watched 20 years of half-memory finally click into place behind his eyes. "The girl with the laugh," he whispered. "You used to come to the office with your dad. You had a red backpack with a broken zipper, and you drew on the walls of the break room, and my father let you because he said—" His voice broke. "He said your father earned the right to have a daughter who felt at home there." "I don't remember the backpack," Emily said softly, crying now too. "But I remember him. Your dad gave me a peppermint every time I visited. I never forgot the smell of that office." "Nathaniel." Vanessa's voice sharpened, desperate now. "This is insane. She could have forged that letter. My father's lawyers can tear this apart in court." "Your father," Nathaniel said, turning to her slowly, "told her 20 minutes ago that he'd make sure nobody ever found her." "I heard that too, Vanessa. From the terrace. Before I saw you put your foot on her shoulder." The silence that followed was worse than any scream. "Take a breath with us. What would you do if you were Nathaniel in this moment? Confront her publicly or handle it quietly? Comment below." Richard Sinclair emerged from the tree line at the edge of the garden, drawn by the commotion, his face draining of color the moment he understood what he was walking into. "Nathaniel, let's be reasonable," he began, hands raised, the practiced calm of a man used to negotiating his way out of anything. "Whatever you think you heard." "I have a recording," Emily said quietly. Every eye turned to her. She held up her phone with a shaking hand. "I turned it on in the cellar the moment I found the folder. I've spent 3 years learning not to trust silence in this family's presence, Mr. Sinclair. I recorded everything." Richard Sinclair's face went the color of ash. Nathaniel stood, pulling Emily gently up beside him, and looked between his fiancée, soon-to-be ex-fiancée, though nobody had said the words yet, and the woman he had spent 18 months quietly, unknowingly, falling for without letting himself understand why. "The wedding," he said, voice hollow, "is off." "Nathaniel, please." Vanessa reached for his arm. He stepped back before she could touch him. "You tried to kill her, Vanessa. Not metaphorically. I watched you do it. There is no version of tonight where we still get married." The next 72 hours moved faster than Emily could process. Nathaniel's legal team authenticated the trust documents within a day. The notary seal, the signatures, the second sealed copy Robert Cole had hidden specifically to survive exactly this kind of betrayal. The recording, combined with the paper trail Richard Sinclair had left across a decade of quiet maneuvering to bury Daniel Carter's claim, was enough for Nathaniel's lawyers to move for immediate criminal referral, attempted destruction of estate assets, conspiracy, and given what had happened on that cliff path, something far more serious. Vanessa Sinclair did not go to prison for attempted murder. The DA's office settled on reckless endangerment, given the difficulty of proving intent beyond Emily's testimony and the partial recording, but her name and her family's became a headline overnight. Sinclair family engineered decade-long scheme to seize coal industry's stake. The wedding venue cancellations alone made the business section. Richard Sinclair's firm lost 4 major clients within the week. Vanessa left California within the month, and nobody in that world spoke her name again without a curled lip. Emily, meanwhile, sat across from Nathaniel Cole in his father's old study 11 days later, the same room where she had once overheard Richard Sinclair's phone call, the room that had changed everything, while his legal team finalized the release of her father's trust. 10% of coal industries, Nathaniel said, sliding the paperwork across the desk, which, based on this year's valuation, makes you a very wealthy woman, Miss Carter. I didn't do any of this for the money, Emily said quietly, and meant it. I did it so my father's name would mean something again. So it wouldn't just disappear. It never disappeared. Nathaniel reached across the desk and covered her hand with his, gently, like he was afraid she might pull away. My father made sure of that the day he wrote that letter. I just wish I'd understood it 20 years sooner. You understand it now. I do. He was quiet for a moment, studying her face like he was memorizing something he never wanted to lose again. Emily, I need to ask you something, and I need you to know it has nothing to do with the stake, or the company, or any of this. He gestured at the paperwork between them. For 18 months, I watched you carry every burden in this house without complaint, and I thought I was imagining the way I felt every time you walked into a room. I wasn't. I know that now. Emily's breath caught. Nathaniel. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, he said quickly, almost laughing at himself. God, that would be insane, given everything. I'm asking if you'd let me take you to dinner. As Emily Carter. Not the maid. Not the heiress. Just you. The girl with the laugh my father remembered for 20 years. For the first time since she had walked through the gates of the Cole estate 18 months ago, Emily let herself smile, without guarding it. I'd like that, she said. I'd like that very much. 6 months later, Emily stood at the same cliffside pavilion where she had nearly lost her life, repainted now, the white lights restrung, the stone path repaired and widened, a small brass plaque installed at its edge that read simply, "In memory of Daniel Carter, who believed in second chances." She had used part of her settlement to fund an engineering scholarship in her father's name at the state university where she'd once studied. Full rides for foster kids pursuing STEM degrees, no strings attached, the exact kind of chance nobody had given her. Nathaniel found her there at sunset, 2 rings in his coat pocket that he hadn't quite worked up the courage to mention yet, and slipped his hand into hers without a word. Second chances, he said, reading the plaque again. Turns out, Emily said, leaning into him, watching the ocean turn gold below the cliff that had almost taken everything from her, they're worth waiting for. If this story moved you tonight, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Emily's place? Would you have trusted Nathaniel sooner, or waited for proof like she did? Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that the truth always finds its way to the surface. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.